Two things happened in Europe on Thursday that are absolutely terrifying. The European Parliament voted to allow governments to scan every private message, every photo, every banking transaction on your phone. And in the same session, they also voted to advance a government-controlled digital currency designed to eventually replace the way that you store and spend your money. One of those votes made headlines, the other barely registered. And here's the part that nobody is putting together. The head of the European Central Bank already told you on camera, in plain language, what she's actually building towards.
If there is an escape, that escape will be used.
She called Bitcoin an escape valve, word for word. She said if there's an escape, that escape will be used. That one sentence tells you everything about what's to come next. The question is whether you're standing on the right side of that door before it shuts. Welcome back to Satoshi. Let's get into it. Before I get into it, smash the like button, hit subscribe, and share this episode with someone in your life who needs to hear this. Perhaps someone in the EU. On Thursday, the European Parliament voted to pass what's called chat control, legislation that requires mass scanning of private messages across digital platforms. Every text, every photo, every encrypted conversation, even every banking transaction on your phone. In the same session, the European Parliament voted 416 to 169 to advance the digital euro, a government-issued digital currency that would give the European Central Bank direct visibility and, in certain scenarios, direct control over how European citizens store and spend money. And also that same day, the EU advanced a digital ID framework requiring citizens to upload their passport before accessing online platforms. 3 votes, same day, 3 different headlines, 1 picture. Christine Lagarde, also known as Opti's ex-girlfriend, aka a demon, has been in the media all week celebrating the digital euro vote, and she's been very adamant about one thing in every single clip. We are not Big Brother. Yeah, okay. She said it more than once and with a lot of emphasis. And for me, when someone tells you that many times that they're not doing the thing, it kind of feels like they're doing the thing that they say they're not doing. Here's what Christine Lagarde actually said this week when asked which country has piloted a digital currency that could serve as a model for Europe.
A digital currency where it has been piloted, and there is only one which is clearly now launched in a very small country, but it is piloted on a fairly large scale in China, is of use and of service to all citizens. So it is not something that is good for the elite or is good for the young or is good for some versus others. If it is well done and if it is well implemented, it would be of service to all citizens.
She's openly citing China's CBDC as the reference point for what Europe is building. There's a second clip from earlier this year where Lagarde is describing cooperation between the ECB and the People's Bank of China. She says the frameworks Europe has adopted are, quote, a mirror of what we have adopted over here in Europe. Yikes. So let's be very clear about what China's CBDC actually does. Money with an expiration date. If you don't spend it within a set window, then it disappears. Government ability to freeze individual accounts without a court order. Full transaction surveillance tied to a national digital ID. No VPNs, no way out. And Europe is building, in Christine Lagarde's own words, a mirror of that. Now, let me tell you the story that makes this concrete. In France this year, a government tax official sold personal financial data, including the names and Bitcoin holdings of individual citizens, to a criminal organization. Not stolen, sold. The result? More than 50 incidents in France in 2026 alone, where Bitcoin holders were physically targeted in their homes. Families held, children threatened, people robbed for amounts as small as $50,000 and in one case, $68,000. The French government's response to a government data leak that endangered families? DAC8, a new EU directive requiring every European crypto exchange to report full customer identity, tax residency, transaction categories, values, dates, and annual aggregates to tax authorities. They literally responded to a data leak by mandating more data collection. And that's not a coincidence. That's just a feature that they want to normalize.
So it has been voted by the European Parliament at the end of 2023, which gave until the end of 2025 for European member states to transpose the directive into their national law. And what this piece of legislation forced CASP, crypto asset service provider, that's how we call exchanges in the context of MiCA, another European law that frame all activities pertaining to exchange of cryptocurrency. Basically, they forced DAC8 forced CASPs to collect a lot of information about their clients, which they were already doing in some sense with KYC and stuff like that. But this goes even further because now they ask us to provide all this information to the tax authority of our local European country, so that this information be shared with other European tax authorities across the Union and put together in a massive database, which will be a horrible data honeypot. So imagine a big database with your name, identity, tax identification number, physical addresses, along with information about like how many coins did you bought this year, how many did you sold, like basically patterns of like crypto buying and selling, which to us creates a grave danger in Europe, especially for part of our team that is based in France and that have seen like firsthand how like $5 range attacks and data leaks are becoming prevalent in Europe at large, but mostly in France. And so it's just a matter of time before this whole database is leaked or hacked, or even that like civil servants sell this data, as it happened like in Italy or France recently, to like basically criminal gangs that will exploit them to kidnap, torture, and try to steal coins to users. That's the reason why we decided to sue the French state basically on different grounds to try to have this legislation, or at least the French version of it, annulled or amended in France, which in practice would mean that any European residents that would use French incorporated crypto asset service, such as Bull Bitcoin, but also others, even some of our competitors, will basically not have to have this kind of Damocles sword, this kind of risk hanging upon them when they are using this service, because it will nullify this obligation of data transmission.
And this is exactly why self-custody isn't optional anymore. It's the only move that puts your Bitcoin outside the reach of what we just described, not on exchanges, not in an ETF, in your own hardware wallet, with your own keys. The Bitcoin Way helps you get there. Free 30-minute consultation at thebitcoinway.com/simply. Tell them Satoshi sent you. Now, I want to go back to that Christine Lagarde quote because it's the most important sentence she has ever said in the public sphere. If there is an escape, that escape will be used. She said this in the context of Bitcoin and global financial regulation. She was arguing for multilateral international coordination, the G7, the G20, all of it, to close what she called the escape. She's not talking about money laundering. She's not talking about crime. She's talking about the ability of ordinary people to hold money outside of a system that can scan it, freeze it, inflate it, or take it. She's scared of that, and she said it out loud. She called it an escape, not a threat, an escape. And now look at what's happening in parallel. Germany just scrapped its 1-year Bitcoin tax exemption, a law that had been in place for over a decade. Under the new rules, Bitcoin gains face personal income tax rates of up to 45%, regardless of how long you've held. Austria did the same in 2022. Portugal is under pressure next. Belgium has already expanded capital gains to cover Bitcoin. MiCA regulation, the EU's Euro's crypto framework that went live July 1st has already forced 85% of its Bitcoin-related business out of Europe, including Tether. And in the same week, a new private stablecoin backed by BlackRock, MasterCard, Visa, and over 140 partner institutions was quietly rolled out. They're not eliminating digital money. They're rebuilding it with full visibility, full control, and no exit. One asset falls outside of that system. They called it the escape valve, and they're closing it, or at least trying.
It was a bold, and some say courageous step that we made because there are consequences for these big global giants that have so much power. And this is an attempt to wind that back a little bit, to say that, no, there are real human consequences.
Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Snapchat are all under active investigation. And here's why the Australian government plans to get tougher. A study published this week in the British Medical Journal found 85% of Australian children under 16 are still on social media, despite the ban that was first introduced at the end of last year. Kids are using fake ages, borrowed accounts, private browsers.
Emily, who are still using it actively, and I have to sort of sit there and pretend like it's not illegal for them to do so. But yeah, I feel they haven't really done as much as they said they were going to.
The penalties were there before and they didn't stop people, so why would increasing the penalties necessarily put any more pressure on the companies to actually change anything?
It's something that we'll have to, I guess, wait and see. I'm not very hopeful though, I'm going to be honest.
A lot of pessimism. And the thing is, lots of other countries are following in the footsteps of Australia with bans.
Now, I want to address something directly because I have heard this before, especially from my fellow Americans, and it's this. This is a European problem. It isn't. Australia rolled out a digital ID with social media ban 3 months ago. 85% of the teenagers it was supposed to restrict bypassed it within weeks. The government's response? Double the fines. The UK is now pushing legislation that would require YouTube to give a privileged position to traditional broadcasters like the BBC, ITV, Channel 4 in recommendation feeds. Independent voices pushed aside and mainstream voices promoted. Same week, all of this happened. All these countries are headed in the same legislative direction, implementing expanded identity verification, digital financial surveillance, restrictions on financial privacy. Think about this pattern. 15,000 millionaires left the UK last year. 55 million people globally have become digital nomads, leaving their home countries to work and live somewhere else freer. Capital moves, people moves, and when a government can't solve its debt problem through productivity, it solves it by making it harder to leave. That's what chat control does. That's what a CBDC does. That's what mandatory identity verification does. This is not a privacy problem. It's a fiscal problem wearing a privacy costume, and it is spreading. And if you watch this show, you know what we're about: freedom of speech, moving Bitcoin forward, owning your own money and not asking permission. The Rumble wallet is built exactly for that. They just launched their new wallet and the setup is simple. Head over to wallet.rumble.com/simply and use Simply10 to get $10 free today. Self-sovereign, self-custody, and it supports the platforms and creators who actually stand for something. So grab your $10 at wallet.rumble.com/simply, code simply10. I have children, and when I read about infrared cameras being mandated in new European cars to monitor your emotional state while you drive, when I read about governments requiring a passport you upload before you can use the internet, and when I read about families in France being targeted at home because a government official sold their financial records to a crime organization, I'm not running price calculations. I'm thinking about the world our children are inheriting. The same system that printed the money, that made my generation unable to afford a home, is now building the infrastructure to make sure that you can't step outside it. And the woman running that system called Bitcoin an escape valve. She said it like it was a warning, and she's not wrong about Bitcoin. She is wrong about who gets to control the door. If your Bitcoin is sitting on a European exchange, it is inside that system, subject to reporting requirements, visible on tax authorities, one policy decision away from being frozen or taxed into nothing. If your Bitcoin is in your own hardware wallet, your keys, your coins, it becomes exactly what Christine Lagarde said it is, the escape valve. She wants you to close it, but that should be your signal to use it. And if you want to be in the room where Bitcoin's next chapter gets built, you want to be at Mining Disrupt, July 21st through the 23rd in Miami, the world's largest Bitcoin mining conference. Code SimplyBitcoin for 20% off at miningdisrupt.com. Christine Lagarde told you exactly what she's afraid of. She called it the escape valve. She said that if there is an escape, it will be used. And she's right about Bitcoin. She's making the narrative that she needs to justify eventually making it very difficult or perhaps illegal to own Bitcoin in the EU. She's wrong about who gets to decide, though. You have that power. So hold your keys in self-custody. Take your Bitcoin off of exchanges. You guys are going to always hear us say that ad nauseum on this channel, but it's true. It is the one thing that I don't feel bad repeating because it might save your life one day. Thanks for watching Simply Bitcoin Satoshi. Don't forget to smash the like button, share the show with your friends, and drop a comment below because I read them all. Follow me on X at InternetSophie. And as always, stack, slay, and stay bullish, baby.